Good evening. My name is Sam Kondo, recently appointed chairman of the Minimum Wage Committee. We are here this evening as part of our educational and public relations exercise to bring the general public up to date in terms of the work what we have been doing. This committee started its work some 6 months ago in March this year. The committee comprised of a number of persons in the public and private sector and also the union. We had members from Ministry of Trade, Ministry of Sustainable Development, the Labor Department, of course, Employment and Labor, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Education. We had a representative from the Chamber of Industry and Commerce, both on St. Kitts and Nevis. Members of the Labor Department came from both St. Kitts and Nevis. And we also had, like I said, the trade union, and we had persons from the central bank, the Social Security. So it was a committee comprised of a number of individuals, like I say, from the public and private sector. The initial meeting was in 20th or thereabout of March of this year. And during the month of April, March, April, we met regularly, twice per week, on Tuesdays and Thursdays to discuss the matter. We had a number of submissions from the various interest groups in terms of what the minimum wage should look like. In fact, all the members of the committee agreed that there should be an increase in the minimum wage. The minimum wage was last increased in 2014. But just to go back from the beginning, in 2004, we had a minimum wage which was $6.25 per hour, a 40-hour week, and that was $250 per week. Then 4 years later, in 2008, the minimum wage was increased to $7.50 per hour, 40-hour week, and that meant that people got some $300 per week. 4 years later, in 2014, the minimum wage was increased to $9 per hour, 40-hour week, so that meant that the minimum wage was $360, which it is still at this point. In 2018, however, a minimum wage committee was established as well, but the committee did not recommend an increase in 2018. So the minimum wage that currently exists is $360, $9 per hour for 40-hour week. And in March of, like I said earlier, March of 2023, a minimum wage was established. A minimum wage committee was established. And like I said, all of the members thought that there was need for an increase in the minimum wage. A number of studies were done, and we had submission from the various groups. We had submission from the Consumer Affairs for an increase in the minimum wage. We had a submission from the Trade and Labor Union, who gave us a number as well. We had one from the Central Bank, the member of the committee from Central Bank, from Social Security, and all the various groups, and all recommended an increase in the minimum wage. And that was discussed. So we came to that decision at the end of April, when we all agreed, and we made a submission. The committee that was established to make the the recommendation to the government, which was under the leadership of the Ministry of Employment and Labor, made a submission to the Minister of Labor, and she made the submission to the Cabinet. And so at the end of April, there was a submission made to the Cabinet of the minimum wage. There was some resistance to that, to the recommendation that was made, and so the Prime Minister himself, as Chairman of the Cabinet, commissioned a task force comprising the Ministry of Finance and other folks to review the decision and to look at the recommendation that was made. As a result of that, the Minimum Wage Committee again was re-engaged because there was a view that we should look at it again. And as a result of that, we decided that we would seek assistance and look at getting some assistance in terms of productivity workshop, because we believe that will assist in terms of getting a minimum wage that was acceptable and more in line with what was necessary and needed in terms of the country. So we invited a gentleman from Barbados, Mr. John Pilgrim, who is a productivity specialist, and he came to St. Kitts at the end of July, or the end of August. The end of August. And we had 2 workshops on the 30th of August and on the 31st of August. 2 really good workshops, and we had some recommendations made out of that. And so, since that, on the 4th of September, the 4th, the 5th, and today is the 6th, so the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th of September, the committee decided that we will make some stops on the radio stations to communicate with the general public, because the government is now ready to announce and introduce this new minimum wage, and we just wanted to inform the public to get a better understanding of where we are, the work that went into it, and so people will understand how we came about our decisions of a minimum wage and how we could take it forward in the interest of everybody, to make sure that the government is able to keep its own commitment of near full employment, a stable economy, low inflation rate, and all the economic indicators which would be taking our country forward. And so we are here tonight. I have with me, on my left, Mr. Paul Creeley, who is the Director of Consumer Affairs, and his office and his ministry will be playing a major role in terms of making sure that there's good compliance and we monitor prices and so on like that. So Mr. Creeley is here with me tonight to assist in informing the public about what was done and how we could move forward. And I also have on my right Jenny Mills, who's a labor officer, works in the Ministry of Employment and Labor. And the Labor Department is going to be really the hub of the Productivity Council. And so I'm particularly pleased to have Jenny in here with us tonight as we go forward. I would now ask Jenny first to make a contribution, and then I'll ask Mr. Creeley, and then we'll come back to get some further discussion on this matter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for inviting us as a ministry to be out here to sensitize the general public on some of the work that's been happening behind the scene where the minimum wage is concerned. It is important that we stated that the Ministry of Labour stands at the vanguard in terms of protecting the general workforce or the population who is on a day-to-day basis out there working. It is important to also to highlight that when the ILO was formulated at the end of the First World War, way back in 1919, it was formulated on the impetus of social justice, well-being and welfare for workers. And all of what is happening here in terms of the minimum wage is all around social justice, because social justice is making sure that those of us who are working, who are pushing the economic activity in the country are, let's say, properly compensated, as the chairman would rightfully say in our meetings. And the ministry has to play an important role in this particular discussion. The Ministry of Employment and Labour is a facilitator, as the chairman rightfully say, and we just there to make sure that all the different stakeholders, when we come to the table, they have an understanding of what should be happening or what the discussions should surround when considering a minimum wage, and make sure that all the stakeholders have a equal say at the table. And I think all of what has been happening behind the scene for the past few months, it has been, how should I put this, Chairman? Should I say positive, in the sense that we had some positive conversations that stoked fire and made us look beyond the normal scope of how we envisioned it at first. And we recognize that we couldn't just look at the minimum wage in a vacuum. And I guess that's why we are here to sensitize the public as to where we are at and where we are heading in terms of a minimum wage, and how we, as the persons who will be benefiting, would want to consider using such minimum wage in the future. Thank you very much.
Mr. Quilly.
Yes, good evening. Thanks for having me as a panelist on this discussion, important matter of the minimum wage. The Consumer Affairs Department is basically here to protect the interests of consumers in the country. We do this through various means, through outreach programs, educational programs, and part of this as well is going into the supermarkets and collecting prices of food items, because we have to ensure that the most vulnerable in our society can still survive and sustain themselves. There has been a lot of discussion surrounding consumer protection matters, and I would like to really address a few of them. Part of this is, as I just mentioned, the food basket, the government price control food basket, and I would like to highlight the items that are contained within this food basket, because persons are under the impression that every item that is sold within the supermarket is price controlled. So the items on this list are chicken frozen, meats frozen, fish frozen, meat salted in brine. This could be pig snout, for example. Fish salted and in brine, for example, saltfish. Vienna sausage, cornmeal, dried peas, cereal, butter, margarine, pasta products, cheese. And cheese does not mean all cheese items. It refers to the canned cheese that is cut in different sections and sold individually. Sardines, tuna and fish, fresh fruits and vegetables, toothpaste, lard and substitutes, cooking oil, rice, toilet paper, medicated soap, powdered detergent, and disposable adult diapers. Now, all the dry items on this list have a percentage markup of 20%. Frozen items carry a percentage markup of 25%. Any items outside of this list, as mentioned, the wholesalers or the retailers can charge whichever percentage markup they choose, but it should not be at the detriment of the consumers. All right? So I would like persons to pay close attention to the items that were listed.
What you mean by they could pay? They could choose any markup, put any markup that they choose. What you mean?
Once it is not an item under government price control, we do not have any control over what
there.
markup they
So
choose.
it's left to the.
That is correct.
Yeah. But the markup shouldn't relate to the cost of the goods and so on. I mean, you can't
The
just.
markup is dependent. The markup for the food basket items is dependent on the overall landed cost of the item.
Right.
So the situation that most persons would experience now after COVID, the cost of many items has increased. So once they get to St. Kitts, the price is going to go up based. If the landed cost here goes up, it's going to go up in the supermarkets as well, because the retailers and the wholesalers have to recoup the money that they spent to get the items. So most times in having discussions with the wholesalers, what they have indicated is that 1 week they might purchase an item is at this price. The next week or 2 weeks later, they go back to purchase another shipment.
And
the price has increased.
But I understand that the price would increase. But I believe that the markup shouldn't be left at the supplier.
Well,
I mean, there must be a limit to the markup you could put on your goods.
Not legally.
No?
Once it is an item outside of the food basket,
They just put on.
you could put on whatever markup you wish. But it should, as I mentioned, it should not be at the detriment of the consumer, and then you will run a risk of kind of pricing yourself
out of the market. Okay, I got you.
So you would have to use proper discretion when you're trying to price your items.
Okay.
All right. As I mentioned, the prices of items have increased somewhat dramatically worldwide. And the Consumer Affairs Department is in total agreement with an increase in the minimum wage. We have seen increases in various businesses, and we've seen increases for salaries of workers, even in the government. But when it comes to the persons on the minimum wage, they have not received an increase for quite a while.
That's right.
And although the prices are escalating around them, they still have to find a way to navigate this.
That's right.
So as I mentioned, the Consumer Affairs is in total agreement with increasing the minimum wage. And just one example, the price of evaporated milk has increased by 34% from 2019 to 2023. Adult Pampers has increased by 46% from 2019 to 2023. And just another example, tomato paste has increased by 60%. 60% from 2019 to 2023.
In a 4-year period. So I guess when you consider the markup in some instances, then we could form this conversation as to what the minimum wage should increase by. But I'm just saying, form a conversation. It's not for us to decide here. At the end of the day, the government, the cabinet would make that subtle decision based on the information that we would have given to them, and it's informed because they would have tasked a cost of living committee to highlight or to bring credence to this information that was forwarded to them from the minimum wage committee. They wanted to have a better understanding. And so this committee was tasked with bringing even more evidence in a shorter space of time so cabinet could look at it. And as you rightfully say, an increase is needed, but what sort of increase, so you think, And probably could go down that sort of road. What sort of increase you think would be competitive so persons at the lowest ebb will be able to shop?
Let me just, before, I don't know if you finish, Paul. I want you to finish before I think. But before we go into discussion, I want to give what the minimum wage, how people say, a definition of what the minimum wage,
Of course,
is about. So
I think I will leave it here for now until we get back into the meat of the discussion, because I will get into what persons could actually purchase based on the current minimum wage.
Okay, good. And in fact, that's exactly where I want to go now, because I have a definition from a quotation from the ILO director about what he thinks an effective minimum wage should be, what it should do. And he says here, and I'm quoting the ILO director, he says, income inequality and poverty will rise if the purchasing power, that's what you were talking about just now, the purchasing power, how the prices have gone up, Income inequality and poverty will rise if the purchasing power of the lowest paid workers, that is minimum wage workers, if the lowest paid workers are not maintained. So you have to have the minimum wage being examined at all times. In addition, a much needed post-pandemic recovery could be put at risk. This could fuel social unrest across the world and undermine the goal of achieving prosperity and peace for all. I mean, this is clearly put, that it is important that people at the lowest level maintain
Correct.
the power the purchasing power. Otherwise, poverty will increase and lead to social unrest and threaten the peace. And so that is why it is important that we have adequate and appropriate, a livable, as some people are terming it now, a livable minimum wage. Below that, it is
unsatisfactory.
Yeah. And so that is why, we are here. I want to go on further before we get into the discussion, in that one of the things that is proving difficult, in my view, for us in this country is that the absence of an effective and robust trade union movement. Because before 2014, in fact, before the 2000s, we had a union that was able to negotiate
Collective bargaining agreements, CBAs.
Collective bargaining agreement, terms and conditions of work, which were able to give workers a wage that they were able to live on. But because of the absence, the erosion of the trade union movement, you see, workers are being taken advantage of, being abused, really.
I have a question. Do you think it is because persons are fearful of losing their jobs, why they don't want to be a part of a union?
Well, why should that be incentivized? All over the world, you have trade unions. In the OECS, in CARICOM. I mean, people can't be afraid of that, because in 1940, you wanted to say something?
After you finished, go ahead.
In 1940, after the Buckley's uprising in 1935, when people, workers, there was no union, Trade unions were illegal at that time.
Correct.
And because people thought they were being underpaid, they were striking. The workers were asking for a penny, increase even a penny, and the employers were prepared to go to war for a penny. And that is why we had the 35, the Buckley's uprising, when people walk around the country. People walk from, if there was no organized coming together of workers, people just decided we are not going to work for this, and they went from estate to estate right around the country. And out of that came the Mowing Commission. in 1940 something. I think it was after the war, 1945. After the war, we had the Moyne Commission, when they made trade unions legal, because they say one of the ways of addressing these problems is to have an effective trade union. And from that time, we saw in the Caribbean in particular, the emergence of trade unions. We started in St. Kitts. And so people can't be afraid a trade union that's a legal, is your right. Your right of association. That's in the Constitution. People should not be afraid of losing the job. In fact, it is well established that without a robust trade union movement, workers in capitalist countries are at the mercy of employers. And in St. Kitts, we see that what has happened. And that began somewhere about 1980.
Well, there would need to be proper education.
Proper education. That is what it's about.
That they have better strength in numbers than to be separate individuals.
Easy. Unity, strength. Strength in numbers. That is our major problem in this country in terms of wages for low-income workers, minimum wage. Because before that, I mean, people were getting, all those collective bargainments on the industrial side, you know, in the sugar factory. I mean, you know, all these things about the 40-hour week, those were union agreements, union were able to do them, holiday with pay. Those were benefits and achievements for the workers done by the workers themselves, by getting together in unions. And so people have to understand that. And you know, I mean, we should not have been here 6 months dealing with the increase of wages for low-income workers. 6 months. I mean, a union would have gone that, and one of the advantages of that is that you will do this on a firm by firm at the micro level. What we are trying to negotiate is a minimum wage across the board, which makes it difficult because they have different conditions and circumstances in the different businesses, in business establishment. And so once you begin to look at it in a broad macro level, you're going to be in trouble. That is what has given us all this trouble, because you have some small businesses that you have to consider, you know, how they're going to exist with a minimum wage like this. But if it was unionized, people would be able to go, you say, well, this is what the business could afford, and this is what is happening, and so on. This is what people will be able to work for. So that is one of the things that our country has to be sensitized. That is important for workers if they're going to get maximize the benefits of their labor. That they could best do that by collective bargaining, coming together as one in union. Yeah, I'm sorry I went on for so long.
That's okay, Chairman. What I wanted to say is that our experience at the Ministry of Labor is that in today's time, employers prefer to speak to individual versus unions.
Of course.
And so they themselves, employers themselves or the companies themselves would encourage persons
not
to negotiate on the behalf and not to be part of unions. Right. And so with that being said, we see the union have some work to do, and they themselves have to be creative in garnering support back towards the union and incentivizing the members and partner with some companies out there already who are union members to bring members on board, because today's society have changed, you know. And so when I gonna be paying you a due or a membership fee to be a part of the union, at the end of the day, what would I be gaining? You understand? And that's how the union have to change things. Yeah, so how could I be a union member and be incentivized by being a union member? And this is easy. I guess I'm trying out something for the union here. For all of the companies that they could go in and form, get CBAs, these are partners, stakeholder partners. And if they are stakeholder partners, then if I'm a part of the union, then I could gain from being a part of your stakeholder organization. And I'm sure that the companies will be willing to go down this road because it can generate more economic activity for them. If I know I'm a union member and I could come by some place and get a 5% discount just for being a union member. When me come some and come buy some instead of going by Queely. Because Queely ain't give me a discount. But because I'm a union member and I come by you, I can get this discount. So I'm saying perhaps that's a way the union have to go. So
But well, those are attractions and so. But just let me say so. People have to see that the basic. I mean, how much is what the union dues are? $2
it's minor because it come down to what, $20 a year? It's
no, not $20 a year. $200. $250 a year.
but it is minor.
Yeah.
Such as the money.
I mean, people have to weigh the costs and benefits. You know, $250 a year
to be represented at
be
that level,
represented, yeah.
Of course, is greater.
Yeah, I mean, people have to see what it is. It costs them nothing for the amount of benefits that they get for that money. I mean, people have to understand what is in their interest. I mean, apart from the fringe benefits of getting a discount and so on, just basic, what it costs to be a union member and what the benefits that it could bring you in terms of wages and salary and condition of work.
Condition of work, yeah. It speaks a lot for real. It speaks a lot of volume.
Yeah. And the businesses, one of the things about trade unions, what they do is to get the moral of the workers, the discipline, organization, which is better for the individual firm and for the country in general.
Correct.
The discipline and orderliness that
often,
better for the business.
Often where there is strong unions, productivity increases too.
Productivity increases, exactly.
It goes hand in hand.
Exactly.
I think that maybe the union should try and tackle this from the standpoint of what we just been through with COVID, where you saw persons losing their jobs left, right, and center.
Yeah.
And emphasize to workers that it would benefit them greatly to be a part of a union.
Exactly.
And maybe this is a good time to point a plug, not to say that not to say the figure that the union would have put in, but the union has always been championing for the cause for the ordinary men and women. And in this case, the chairman would have alluded to submissions that were handed in by all stakeholder organizations, and the union really was fighting on behalf of the ordinary men. By the end of the day, they still need, you understand, there's some work to be done in terms of well-being and welfare in terms of these same ordinary people from the union standpoint.
Yeah. We have to sensitize workers, we have to educate them on the value and the importance of union. You know, that in the union is just a win-win for workers.
Could I say it a different way, Chairman?
Yeah.
The union would help to make the minimum wage just the minimum wage. The union would help to argue for better wages based on what is happening in the company. The union we get to examine the company records and to see the profit margins and to determine, well, this is the portion that should go back to the workforce. Without a union, a single man can't go in and see this information because it's too much. But a union get to see these things and they get to negotiate for more on your behalf. If they think you deserve more and they could see that you deserve more.
When you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
Yes.
And so the workers, the union gives the workers a position, a seat at the table.
Correct. And in the crux of things right now, in most instances, the union is not, the workers are not at the table because they're not represented by the union. You have a few situations, you have a few CBAs existing, so you have a few areas where the union is there.
Not enough.
But it is not enough. And you're so correct, Chairman. A union, and that's why I alluded to it, a union will help to make the minimum wage, just the minimum wage. And if you have a union in most instances, the minimum wage, like I said, it can just be the wage where you can go below. However, in most instances, people are going to be getting that and even more benefits because the union can fight for those benefits for you.
And one of the things happen with the union is that union are able to negotiate terms and conditions of work. Now you put on you introduce a minimum wage, and then employers say, well, you got a minimum wage, and I'm going to
squeeze you on this end.
I'm going to reduce the hours of work. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. If you are unionized, they can't do that, you know. And the businesses need their own business. I mean, if they're going to create profit, if they want to advance their own cause, they need the businesses. And so to do that, they have to sit around the table. I mean, if all the workers in any particular firm decide, well, look,
We ain't showing up.
we ain't showing up,
You're
the
correct.
firm is in trouble.
You're
the
correct.
business can't
You're correct.
function.
You're correct.
It can't function. And that is the strength of a union, that is the strength of workers coming together. And like I said, I mean, the last 6 months have really, brought home to me the importance and the value of trade unionism,
Collective bargaining agreement.
collective bargaining. I mean, we wouldn't be here doing all
It would have
of
been
this.
easier.
Easier.
We would have been here, but it would have been easier because the union would have come already
Yeah.
with their CBAs already identified for the different sectors or companies.
Right.
Yeah, so it would have been a lot easier.
From what I've seen from our meetings, the businesses don't really want to go beyond a certain point unless they actually have to. So,
Put another way, the businesses will not pay you $1 unless they have
unless
to.
they're mandated to do it.
The business is about the bottom line. I mean, they say that all the time. I mean, you heard the businesses in the COVID situation. The directors told you that we are about the bottom line. We are about profit for our shareholders. And so the workers have to get somebody who is interested in their benefits.
That is correct. Because the businesses,
That's the
as
only
you said,
how
they're
it's
concerned
gonna
with the
work.
bottom line.
Yeah.
So a union would be
Concerned with their bottom
Critical
line.
need.
And their bottom line is the workforce. Because my bottom line here is the laws. In terms of from the Ministry of Employment and Labor, our duty is to make sure that we stand in vanguard and protect the laws and to make sure that both parties are adhering to.
Yeah.
And the union job is to protect
Yeah.
its work, its constituents. And the chamber can protect theirs.
Yeah,
and so you're correct.
And Queely has to protect the
consumers, which is all of us.
Making sure so everybody must be properly represented and protected. Everybody has to be at the table. And that is why the union must be at the table in terms of negotiating these wages.
Correct.
Yeah, so I don't really mean to jump ahead, but
No, go ahead,
going
man,
back
go
down
ahead.
the road of what it is a minimum wage worker could afford,
Right.
right? Me and Mr. Mills, we're part of a cost of living committee as well,
Right.
and we had to work with some different scenarios for the cabinet.
That's right.
From the consumer affairs standpoint, what we did surveys or interviews with minimum wage workers and asked them to fill out a sheet and indicate what it is you purchase on a weekly basis from the supermarket, right? And based on that information, we used prices from the Consumer Price Index. So we had a list here, person purchasing sugar, eggs, rice, macaroni and cheese, flour, onion, sweet potato, Irish potato, ketchup, chicken wings, lentils, dishwashing liquid, toothpaste, drink mix, corned beef, Vienna sausage, sliced cheese, sanitary pads, Pampers, and that's important because a lot of minimum wage earners, of course, they're gonna have children, right?
Yep.
And when we totaled up this list, it came to $319,
319.
yeah, and 18 cents from 360.
No, you can't say 360. You gotta say from the net. The net is not 360. The gross is 360.
Well,
The net is about 342.
make it even worse.
But that's why we have to say it here so people could understand what it is. You understand? We will face with in these deliberations and conversations.
Yeah. So you could clearly see here, based on doing a weekly shopping, this individual, they don't have anything really to survive for the remainder of the week after they do the shopping.
God, no essential services are considered, no rent is considered. That is just shopping.
Yeah, and some of the minimum wage earners, they live in the rural areas. You would have to factor in bus
Transportation.
fee.
Exactly.
So it is very tough on some individuals in
And I think
society.
the cheapest bus route at twice per day for 5 days was what, $20-something?
I think so. I think it's $350 a trip. Transportation came to $37.50.
Yeah. 37.50. So the $20-something that you had remaining, you owe the
You
busman.
gone in the red?
You owe the busman for bringing you town for 5 days to work. That ain't even counting in a Saturday or Sunday if you want to do something else for your own leisure time.
Correct. So then, when persons don't have enough money to survive, they turn to different means to get this money because they have to live, you know.
That is
They
what
have to get by.
the quotation from the ILO director is talking about.
So persons need to be, our businesses need to be cognizant of how hard persons have it out there in society. And it is important that they support a livable wage for persons who are on the lower end of the spectrum. Sometimes when we sitting around, we might not be focusing on persons who don't have it as good as us. And we should never lose sight of those individuals. They play a part in society as well. So we should always try to make them as comfortable as can be. And I will stop there for now in terms of that.
Yeah.
What I'll add to that is being in the discussions, whether it was the minimum wage advisory committee or the cost of living or any other committee in relation to this exercise, I recognize that all the stakeholders, we understand that we are there to protect, at the end of the day, integrity of St. Kitts and Nevis. And those of us who go out and make the country what it is from an economic standpoint is the workforce. And when I say the workforce, it's those who are at the lowest ebb, those who make the smallest salary, is who drive the economy. These are the people who are going out and packing the shelves and making sure this stuff reach from point A to point B, building the homes and that kind of stuff. So I'm saying these are the people who are going out and doing the laborious work or the task work. And these are the people who are making the list. And all stakeholders recognize that. What all stakeholders are not keen on is what Queely just alluded to. What should be this livable wage? Because the truth is, we recognize in these meetings, and Chairman, you could highlight or you could say whether it is or not that a minimum wage is not a livable wage. We realize there's a big disparity. A livable wage is a livable wage, and a minimum wage is a minimum wage. One thing Queely forgot to say that the truth is, a means test determined that a livable wage in St. Kitts right now would be $2,500 a month at a minimum. That would be something, that is something that could be considered livable. Why? Because the smallest man would have $318 left with this money, with his list that he put together there. He would have $318 left to the things that is not mentioned on that list.
Correct.
That is considered livable. Anything outside of that is not livable. However, can the government at this point in time introduce what is considered a livable wage? No. Can the government introduce, though, a minimum wage? Yes. And what can go further than a livable wage? And one is Mr. Queely here by saying that consumer affairs would play the part in supporting those of us who are on the lowest spectrum to make sure that when you're going to the supermarket, the 25% or the 20% markup that was agreed to is what is being transposed to us and nothing more. And they have other entities and stakeholders that will have to get on board to make sure that those persons who really need to be impacted at the level are impacted. And the government itself could move away from some of the social assistance that is causing us to hurt from an economical standpoint at a macro level. I'll turn it back over to you, Chair.
Yeah, and you see, that is why the education and the public relations is so important, because at the end of it, I mean, Paul hit it on the head. Who hit the nail on the head? Because at the end of it, what you want to do is you want to the whole economic and social fabric must be such that we create a society, you know, where the dignity of every human being is being considered.
Correct.
In fact, somebody put it that the whole idea is to create an honest society, a society in which the moral and spiritual values would tame the natural greed and selfish tendencies of the human being, and to ensure happiness and well-being for all. That is the ideal. You know, some people might call it utopian, but that is what we should aim at. And so when we looking at that, how we can do that, that's why we want all the individuals. Can't be just employers thinking about the bottom line alone.
No, everybody need to be on the same page.
Employers have to understand that, you know, a little less bottom line could, in the long run, be in their interest, because you create a society where there's, you know,
togetherness, love, camaraderie.
Yeah.
And if I feel as if I'm a part of your company that I didn't buy a bill, I gonna work harder for you.
That will put,
if I work harder for you, you're gonna get better rewards at the end.
You will put social cohesion. We don't want to put. We won't have to spend so much money on national security.
Correct, because we live in harmony and love.
Yeah.
Nobody. It's like you don't have this big disparity about poor and rich, or the haves and the haves not. And you're correct. If we could minimize that in terms of how we live from a social standpoint, it can get easier.
And if you give people a salary that they could eat well, I mean, you reduce the input in terms of health care, because people will be healthier.
Correct.
I mean, if you have your working conditions, so people have time off for exercise,
less stress, they're going to be healthier, happier.
People have to understand that together. And if you make an input.
Chairman, to add to what you're saying, you know, that's one of the biggest concerns for persons, for the workforce in this era. Before, it used to be slips, trips, and falls in terms of risk or hazards. But that's not the biggest hazard anymore. The biggest one is psychosocial hazard, the stress that you can't see. And if a man have to go out and play and work, knowing that at the end of his work week, he ain't gonna have any money, but he still have to go out. That is stress in itself. And if he's stressed or she's stressed, you can't go out and be as productive as you want to be. And if the productivity is not up at the par, then the company is losing.
This company suffer.
Correct.
You understand? So it's all these things, you know. So a minimum wage helps to. Minimum wage increase at a level where persons feel comfortable helps to eliminate some of the added, additional stress or tension.
And, you know, in fact, to go back, because this really is my...
Speak to it for you.
It says the inequality, income inequality, because while people are here on these minimum wage that they can't live up, the directors, I mean, and the employers, you know, I mean, some salaries that, you know, and allowances.
In some instances, could pay everybody on the line.
Yeah, and is that kind of income inequality that is going to create
the chaos?
Yeah.
And the trivial
people
situations that we see.
But like I say, that's why we need to sit around the table, because there are some businesses. I mean, people have been talking to me, you know, about their own business, their own particular situation, small businesses. And so you have to, that is why I'm saying that what we need is trade unionism, where people, we could have collective bargaining in terms of a workplace, a business, an entity, on a micro level, rather than a minimum wage across the board. some people will just go out of business.
Chairman, I would say a minimum wage across the board. It helps to set a bottom line.
Yeah, but it helps to set a bottom line. But we are in a small economy. I mean, a bottom line, they have minimum wage in Europe and so on, in the United States and so on. You can't go below that. But the businesses, because of our size,
It's unique. So I understand what you're saying. It would have been better if we continuously had the collective bargaining agreement.
It must be.
You
We
understand?
need this more than anybody else. We need this more than our, because you're talking about big, sophisticated economy where businesses are at a certain level. Here, somebody got a small business. A lady was talking to me about her business, and she's saying, "Look, now, all we're trying to do is to help you because we understand, but we can't pay beyond a certain level. We will not be able to do it, and the workers, they are not, they don't understand that. They're just coming to get a wage and so on, and they're saying that they will tell you what the minimum wage is, and they're not producing what it is necessary and needed for that wage. And so it is that kind of issue that we have to deal with in a small economy like ours.
So then we are seeing some of this stuff that from this conversation alone tonight, this is what I'm getting, Chairman, that the minimum wage committee it should not just be, let's say, castigated and forgotten about after the introduction of the new wage. What I'm getting here is you should have an avenue for continuous feedback to gain the improvement that you're looking for.
Yeah. But not only the committee. We need a productivity
council. Correct.
And we need a trade union, a strong trade union to advocate and, move for the cause of workers. We need that, a productivity council. We need the minimum wage committee on a continuous basis, and we need a trade union, a strong, effective trade union who is going to work. People have to understand it is in their interest. And it costs nothing to join a trade union. I mean, a beer, 2 beers, $5 a week. That's what, Just stop buying 2 beers. Instead of buying 2 beers, trade union juice, $5.
You could do it a different $1 a day. It gets you the same thing. Same $1 for 5 days. It gets you the same place.
Yeah.
I guess sometimes
that is their interest. We have to again begin to educate the people, or people in the past. I mean, like we have to go back to 1935. It's the people them, there was no leadership, there was nobody who tell them to do that, It's the people get up and they said this ain't good. We need more than that. And they went from estate. In fact, they were calling out people off the estates. Come, stop work. We can't work for that. That is what caused the trade union,
I wanted to ask a question.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever got to this, but has any thought has been given to how this would affect the small businesses?
Exactly. That is the point. That is my concern. And that's why we need.
That's why the chairman was saying, if we get back to the ways that we were prior to a minimum wage being established in 2004 and had active trade unionism, then they would be working out CBAs, and they're doing that would eliminate the small man, the small shops, or the small businesses being, held ransom in a situation like this. Because what would happen before that is that you had a different pay happening across the different sectors. And this was based on your expertise, your skill level, or what was expected of you. So somebody who was and somebody who was working in a shop, for example, let's say I was working in a shop that you had, a small shop that you had, I wasn't getting, let's say, the 325 that somebody was getting who was doing something that was more physical on the body and that kind of stuff. That person was getting probably like $4.10, you understand? But with a minimum wage now, you set across the board and you say everybody have to be here, so you remove the high and the low, regardless where you're at. And that's why the minimum in some instances has become the maximum.
That's right.
And go right back to support what the chairman is saying, that it would take strong union, it would take union representation to remove some of those hurdles. And I think this government is trying to get back there. I think the Prime Minister, even before he became Prime Minister, he was speaking to the importance of trade unions and persons going back to be a part of them. So let's see if the people are listening and would recognize the importance of coming together.
You know, and really, I keep saying this, you know, we had an opportunity because we know that the assault on the trade union took place from 1980. But from 1995 to 2015, under Labour administration, the Labour Party the Labour government did not do enough to, again, rekindle, resuscitate, revive the trade union movement. That was a major failing of the thing.
And then if I may add to that, I would say that the pandemic, though it wasn't planned or asked for, I think the union would have failed themselves there to recognize from a welfare and well-being standpoint how they should have been to the forefront of what was happening in relation to the workforce. And everybody who was working were impacted. And so the union should have stepped in right there and get certain things happening. It still could happen.
Still could happen, and it must happen.
Yes.
It must happen. I mean, workers have to understand that their salvation, the best, you know, opportunities, the best is how we go. So we run out of time.
Almost.
Naturally, the conversation like this just you never have enough time for them. So maybe we should just close off. Maybe I should start with you, or you want to start the close off? Because
it was a pleasure being here tonight, and as mentioned, we should always pay close attention to the persons in society who do not have it as good as us, because they still need to survive and take care of their families. In the absence of a proper wage, a livable wage, persons could turn to all sort of different sort of activities. Crime levels could escalate, and these are things that we do not really want in our society. So we're seeking the support of everyone in going forward with this minimum wage. It's a good initiative, I would say. Once again, thanks for having me here tonight.
Well, I would like to say thank you to the chairman for having me here, and for the Ministry of Employment and Labour and the government as a whole for putting on such an initiative in terms of sensitizing the general population about the importance of a minimum wage and some of the stuff that was happening in the back rooms, you know, as we ventilated issues to be at this point. A minimum wage is coming. And as Queely rightfully said, we would want the support of all stakeholders, whether it is employers, the employees, and in some instances, even the government, because we know the different arms and ambits of government will have our various roles and duties to play to safeguard those who are at the lowest ebb. And I think we are on a right path. And Chairman, thank you very much for doing such a wonderful job over the past few months, you know, to get us to this point where we are today.
It's been my pleasure. This is, you know, the advancement of working people, the development of our people. That is my life's work, and so I'm happy and pleased to be of assistance anytime. And I want to thank you all. I mean, the committee. I mean, you're out there on the committee. You're out there in the meetings, and you see the passion of people, you know, from all walks of life, from, you know, all the different areas, social security, the central bank. I mean, people were, you know, were committed. I mean, they went beyond the call of duty. I mean, people, you were able to call people at a short notice. In fact, two people who were supposed to be here tonight, Carla Diamond from Education, she called me. She said, you know, I'm really sorry that I can't make it, but you know, I'll be listening, and you know, if you need me in the future. She's strong on education and so on, and she wants to help. Patricia Welch from the Central Bank, she had to travel, and so she couldn't make it. She wanted us to put it off until she comes back, but we can't do that. And you know, she was trying to get the governor to see if he could you know, substitute somebody else for her, and that wasn't possible. But it is the commitment of all the people. I mean, that really inspires me and you know, encourages me. And so I am pleased to be able to do that. And I want to say finally that our country will rise to high levels if we pull those below us up with us.
Correct. We can live together.
Yep.